Asterisk, Ethan Parker had never been one for luck, not the good kind, anyway. At 35, he juggled 2 part-time jobs just to keep the lights on for his 8-year-old daughter, Lily. Tonight, he was working the graveyard shift as a janitor at the towering headquarters of Reynolds Global. The building gleamed with polished marble and glass walls, worlds away from the cramped apartment he called home. Asterisk, he'd just finished mopping the 12th floor when the elevator doors slid open. He stepped in, whistling quietly, the smell of lemon cleaner still on his hands. A soft voice called out, "Hold the door, please." He pressed the button instinctively, and in walked a woman whose presence seemed to change the very air in the small space. She wore a sleek navy skirt suit, her dark hair swept into a perfect bun. Asterisk, Ethan recognized her instantly. Charlotte Reynolds, CEO of Reynolds Global. The woman whose name was on half the paperwork he'd signed since taking this job. She offered a polite but tired smile before pressing the button for the lobby. Asterisk, the elevator hummed to life, then jerked violently. The lights flickered once, twice, and then went out, plunging them into dim red emergency lighting. The cabin stopped between floors. Asterisk, Ethan immediately pressed the alarm button, but the intercom hissed with static. Charlotte crouched near the panel, her perfectly manicured fingers trying every button. "It's not responding," she said, her voice calm but tight. Asterisk, looks like we're stuck, Ethan said, forcing a smile. Maintenance should be here soon. But as the minutes ticked into an hour, and faint mechanical noises in the shaft gave way to eerie silence, a strange unease settled over them. Asterisk, somewhere above, faint footsteps echoed in the shaft. Then unexpectedly came the muffled clang of metal tools against the elevator door. Not from the building's repair team, but from someone trying to pry it open from the wrong floor. Asterisk, Charlotte's eyes locked on Ethan's. "That's not maintenance, okay?" Asterisk, he stood between her and the door without hesitation. The man outside jimmied the panel, and a sliver of darkness from the shaft appeared. Ethan's instincts screamed something was very wrong. Asterisk, the stranger's voice filtered in, "Open up. We just need to check something, okay?" Asterisk, Ethan clenched his fists, tonic. "So." Asterisk, Charlotte's calm facade cracked, her breathing quickened. "Mr. Parker, if they get in here, it won't be good." Asterisk, he didn't know what they wanted with her, but his gut told him one thing. Tonight, his job description had just changed. He wasn't just a janitor anymore. He was her shield. Asterisk, asterisk. The sound from the other side of the elevator door grew more deliberate, metal groaning under the pressure of crowbars. The echo of boots, shifting weight. Whoever was out there wasn't giving up. Ethan's heartbeat thudded in his ears, but his body moved on instinct, positioning himself in front of Charlotte like a human barricade. Asterisk, stay behind me, he said in a low voice. Asterisk, Charlotte's dark eyes held his for a second, and in that moment, he saw something unexpected. Fear, yes, but also trust. "Do you think they're after me?" Asterisk, Ethan's jaw tightened. "I think they're not here to give you flowers." Asterisk, the gap in the door widened enough for a gloved hand to slip in and probe for the latch. Ethan lunged forward, shoving the panel shut with a force that made the intruder grunt. "Back off," Ethan barked. Asterisk, there was a pause, silence so heavy. It was almost worse than the noise. Then came the voice again, this time lower, colder. "You're making a mistake." Charlotte whispered. "Ethan, we have to call security." "No signal," he reminded her. His phone had already been useless, showing one stubborn bar that refused to send a call. Asterisk, the emergency lighting flickered again. Ethan scanned the cramped space, his mind racing for options. There was the hatch in the ceiling, but it was locked from the outside. He'd used one once during training years ago, when he worked construction. He could force it open. Asterisk, another loud clang rang out, snapping his focus back. The men, because it was clear there were at least two now, were working faster. The narrow confines of the elevator became a pressure cooker of heat, adrenaline, and Charlotte's quickened breaths. Asterisk, Ethan shifted closer to the panel and pressed every emergency button again. Praying something would connect. Static hissed back at him. Asterisk, they know we're stuck, Charlotte said, her voice steadying. That's why they're here now. Asterisk, he looked over his shoulder. You know them? Asterisk, she hesitated. Not exactly. But I've been making some enemies lately. There's a contract worth billions that certain people didn't want me to sign. Let's just say I didn't play by their rules. Asterisk, Ethan let out a short breath. And now they're breaking into an elevator at midnight. Sounds like you hit a nerve. Asterisk, the panel creaked again, the gap widening. This time, a face appeared, a ski mask covering everything but sharp, pale eyes. The intruder grinned faintly when he saw Ethan blocking the way. Asterisk, in a flash, the man shoved his arm through, reaching for the latch. Ethan grabbed his wrist and slammed it against the door frame. Darned, the man yelped, and Ethan kicked at the gap until the hand disappeared. Asterisk, you just bought us a few minutes, Charlotte said. Asterisk, that's all I need, Ethan replied, his mind already on the ceiling hatch. He moved to the center of the car, braced himself, and jumped, fingers hooking the metal lip of the hatch. With a grunt, he pulled. It didn't budge. Asterisk, Charlotte stepped under him, supporting his legs. Try again. Asterisk, Ethan yanked harder, feeling the lock give just slightly. Come on. One more heave, and it snapped open, revealing a dark shaft lined with cables. The stale air rushing in smelled of dust and machine oil. Go, Ethan urged. Charlotte hesitated. What about you? Asterisk, I'll be right behind you. Asterisk, she climbed quickly, heels clanging against the railing before she kicked them off entirely. Ethan followed, pulling himself through the hatch, just as the elevator door below rattled violently. Asterisk, they crouched on top of the car, a narrow ledge beneath their knees. The dim glow from a maintenance light above barely reached him. Asterisk, what? Now, she whispered. Asterisk, Ethan scanned upward, spotting the next floor's landing. We climb. Asterisk, she looked at the ladder, bolted to the wall. You're kidding? Asterisk, he met her gaze. You want to wait and see what those guys want? Asterisk, her lips pressed into a thin line. Point taken. Text. They started up, Ethan leading and checking each rung before trusting it. Charlotte followed, her hands trembling but determined. Every clang from below echoed through the shaft, reminding them that time was running out. Asterisk, halfway up, a shout rose from the elevator car. The masked man had found the hatch. They went up. Asterisk, Ethan's muscles burned, but adrenaline pushed him faster. At the landing, he reached for the manual release lever. With a screech, the metal door slid open just enough for them to squeeze through. They tumbled into the deserted 13th floor. One of the company's rarely used storage levels. Asterisk, Charlotte closed the door behind them, but Ethan knew it wouldn't hold long. Asterisk, this floor's got an emergency stairwell, she said, pointing down a dim corridor lined with dusty filing cabinets. Asterisk, they sprinted, their footsteps thudding against the worn carpet. Behind them, the elevator shaft echoed with the sound of someone climbing fast. Asterisk, as they neared the stairwell, a figure stepped into their path, another man, also masked, blocking the door. Asterisk, going somewhere, he sneered, pulling a knife from his belt. Asterisk, Ethan moved without thinking, shoving Charlotte behind him. I'm not in the mood, he said flatly. Asterisk, the man lunged, but Ethan sidestepped, catching his wrist and twisting hard. The knife clattered to the floor. Ethan kicked it away and drove his shoulder into the man's chest, sending him crashing into a cabinet. Asterisk, Charlotte grabbed Ethan's arm. Come on, Okay. Asterisk. They barreled into the stairwell, slamming the door. Ethan grabbed a nearby mop handle ironically, one of his own cleaning tools from earlier, and jammed it through the railing to wedge the door shut. Asterisk. They ran down the stairs. Floor after floor, hearts pounding. Somewhere above, heavy boots banged against the door, followed by frustrated shouts. Asterisk. Finally, they burst into the lobby, where a lone security guard was sipping coffee at the desk. His eyes widened at the sight of Charlotte's hair mussed, stockings torn, and Ethan's covered in dust and sweat. Asterisk. Call the police, Charlotte ordered, her voice regaining the steel of a CEO. We've had an attempted abduction. Asterisk. Within minutes, sirens wailed outside, and uniformed officers poured into the building. The masked men never made it past the stairwell. They were caught trying to escape through the service exit. Asterisk. As the chaos settled, Charlotte turned to Ethan. You didn't have to do any of that. You could have stayed out of it. Asterisk. Ethan shrugged, rubbing the back of his neck. Not really my style. Asterisk. She studied him for a long moment, then smiled a genuine, warm curve of her lips. I think you just saved my life. Asterisk. He gave a small grin. Guess I'll add that to my janitor's resume. Asterisk. Charlotte's eyes softened. Something tells me you're meant for more than mopping floors. Asterisk. Before he could reply, Lily's face flashed in his mind, her bright eyes, her hopeful smile. He thought of what might have happened if he hadn't been there tonight. Asterisk. As the police escorted the attackers out in handcuffs, Charlotte slipped her business card into his hand. We'll talk tomorrow about a real job, one that fits what you're actually capable of. Asterisk. Ethan glanced down at the card, then back up at her. I'll hold you to that. Asterisk. And for the first time in years, as he stepped into the night air, Ethan felt something stirring in his chest, something that felt dangerously close to hope. Asterisk.